You got an Asian superstar that wants an extension. He see all this money, Paul George, all this money is being passed around, but yet he's been missing games. And in Miami culture, you got to be available.
If you're not on the court playing against Boston or on the court playing against the New York Knicks, you should keep your mouth shut.
Yeah. See, I may be mad at the coach. I may be mad at the owner and the GM. But one thing I'm never going to do, I can't quit on y'all. Y'all my teammates.
He's on a $49 million deal. He was extension eligible. And Pat Riley said in the offseason,
I'm not going to, so quit asking.
Jimmy Butler is undoubtedly one of the most puzzling star players of the last 10 years of basketball. During his best, Butler consistently finished in the top 10 and was regarded as a playoff player. There were even nights in some series when you had to wonder if this man was Michael Jordan's long-lost son.
46 points for Jimmy Butler. Sets up a three. Butler. Long shot.
Perfection. Even while Butler was amazing at those times, there were other some certain series that you were left wondering, where is this guy?
Bucks have the Heat on the brink of elimination. Up 3-0. Butler goes strong. No.
Charles Barkley cleaning up.
Just happens to be using a broom to help us clean up around the studio.
I mean, Dad, there is a certain Jimmy, his great moments, his peaks, and his bad moments, which are pretty bad now. Regardless of Jimmy's dominance during his prime, they were always seen as a sleeping giant in the Eastern Conference who could upset teams like the Celtics. Give him a ton of credit for that, and as the quote-unquote guy on 2 finals teams. That version of Jimmy from back then, who made 2 finals, is no longer with us in 2025. Jimmy is not only older and more prone to injuries these days, but his ego has also grown so large that it is too big for his body. What you have in South Beach right now is a deadly combination of an aging superstar with a huge ego. 2 or 3 years ago, Paul George and Jimmy were completely different in their mindsets, but now they are uncannily similar, and looking at Jimmy now is honestly worse because, once again, this guy was a cutthroat superstar who would stop at nothing to win. For Heat supporters, let's just say that Butler, who is now approaching 36, has quit on your team, on Pat Riley, and on your organization. Butler is also described as a diva who goes into full self-destruct mode if he doesn't get exactly what he wants.
25th in Portland. They want a franchise record 20.
Step back one-legged. What kind of shot is that?
What this boils down to is money, like most things, and Pat Riley, who has witnessed almost every moment of NBA history, knows that this 36-year-old man isn't worth what he wants. In addition, Pat Riley told Butler that if he plays this season, he's available and will discuss a contract extension. First of all, Butler hasn't been available this season. He's dropped a lot of duds, had questionable games, 3 points here, 2 points there, just not being healthy or available again. What Butler wants right now is one last big payday, get his contract, play 2 more years, and then leave the stage and be set for life. Of course, he already has that last big contract. However, for those guys I mentioned, they all have one thing in common. They're all multi-time champions. But LeBron and Kerr, specifically, even at the age of 35 and 40, their level plays infinitely higher than one Jimmy Butler, and based on Butler's performance this season, I mean, it's debatably the worst year of his career in an offensive era. That version of Jimmy in 2023 is all but gone, and the problem is that, even though Butler was a born option back then, we were still a little doubtful and skeptic about whether he could win a championship with Butler as your number 1. His scoring, assists, rebounds, steals, and games missed are all down. Butler is currently 36, so I'm wondering if he might be a number 2 or maybe a number 3 player on a championship squad. The number 1 days that's over, it's gone with, it's not who you are anymore, it's over, and once again the par between Butler and Paul George the first mean it's pretty eerie as Butler very quietly in South Beach he always missed 20 games here, 15 games they're out of lineup, not healthy, and sometimes just kind of resting low. Managing when you're a guy in your prime making 2 finals, you can say, well yeah, he misses 20 games, we're making the finals, he's great in the playoffs when you're in your mid-30s still. Missing 20 games here, 22 games there, and you're not making in the finals, then that justification becomes a lot harder to make. And looking at Butler the past 5 years, again this dude 20 games here, 25 games there, routinely out of the past 5 years Butler on average missed 28% of the games for his Heat team. What it comes down to, Butler, is he a 35-year-old wins a contract of a 28-year-old or acting like a 12-year-old? Want it now. And looking at our current ERA of the NBA, I think a lot of teams, a lot of owner and GMs, they kind of panic, just pay their star player regardless of the money, the age, really regardless of anything. The one guy who really doesn't do that is indeed Pat Riley, because once again Pat Riley is kind of an old school no nonsense no BS guy. And looking at his time in South Beach, I mean the Heat just kind of cycle in players, cycle them out, make finals here, make finals there, won a couple of championships back in the 2000s. Alonzo and Tim Hardaway came and went D-way a couple years later, drafted, traded for Shaq, they won a championship, Shaq got older, ship him out 2 years later, Wade. It's sort of a revolving door of this cycle of superstars coming and leaving, winning championships, and being extremely successful. And we're looking at players like a Wade, a Shaq. Bosh and LeBron won a couple of championships, then Wade moved on, Wade returned, Wade retired, and then you had Butler. Tim and Alonzo were older superstars who demanded high salaries when they departed Miami. So this whole mess, since Pat Riley is somewhat stubborn on the one hand, Jimmy versus Riley should have been anticipated from the start of this season. Jimmy Butler is naive and extremely conceited. When Paul George asked for money, he said, "Bring me my money." He also gave me the impression that he was very pro-me, which makes me wonder how his career will be viewed in 20 or 25 years. He also left teams on very bad terms, because Jimmy always leaves on a big note. In Chicago, Mark requested an extension, but it was exchanged. Minnesota, the same scenario happened when Wiggins was dealt to Philadelphia and Awol was traded to Cat. He traveled to South Beach after Philly failed to pay him, but the issue still exists with Jimmy not receiving the money he truly desires after considering all those possibilities. Chicago, Minnesota, Miami is now Philadelphia, but none of those locations are too responsible for all of those unhappy endings because, of course, Philadelphia got screwed over fairly badly. But here's the issue, we don't really know how legitimate that is. But if Butler in Phoenix gets his extension, gets paid, and gets what he wants, we're one of 6 players making over $50 million, and if that happens, it's Steven. Butler was 29 years old in 2019, and his failure to get paid back wasn't a crime or a travesty. Now that he's 35, it's not that far-fetched. Pat Riley. There was a pay guy who's on the back 9 of his career. Joel Joik. KD. That concludes the video, which is, in my opinion, fairly straightforward and easy. Beal and Butler are by far the 2 worst names on that list, but fortunately for Jimmy Bradley, Beal has been so awful that Butler's contract is not the worst in the league but the second worst. As always, thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it all. The next time. Butler wants to be paid like a mega superstar player even though he isn't producing like one, being available like one, or doing anything like a top 5 player. Pat Riley deserves a lot of credit because he hasn't wavered despite Butler's constant complaints, tears, and resignation from his Heat teammates.